In the days following the grand jury decisions in Ferguson, Missouri, and Staten Island, New York, thousands of Americans took to the streets in huge, peaceful demonstrations. Are we witnessing a new phase of the American civil rights movement? In today's program, we will explore these and related questions with young activists, legislators, and protest organizers on the ground in Ferguson, Missouri. I'm your host, Bill Fletcher. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Suddenly, it feels like the 1960s again, with swirling movements for social justice, finding inspiration and a powerful common denominator in the struggle for black equality. Multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-class, and multi-generational Americans have swarmed the streets in vast numbers to not only protest against racial injustice, but to expose systemic oppression that has been an open secret since the heyday of the late 60s and early 70s. The decision by a Staten Island, New York grand jury not to indict police officer Daniel Pantaleo in the choking death of Eric Garner came 9 days after Ferguson, Missouri erupted into an open rebellion following another grand jury's decision not to indict former police officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death of Michael Brown, a black teenager. While violence engulfed parts of downtown Ferguson, 170 cities staged largely peaceful demonstrations, both in solidarity with Black Lives Matter movement and in demand of a vision of social justice that far surpasses the imagination of most contemporary politicians and pundits. Young leaders of this emerging movement are posing critical questions such as, when do we start to think big? Like A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, and other brilliant African-American strategists of yesteryear. We're joined by DeRay McKesson, who's a writer and activist and has been frequently on the ground in Ferguson, Missouri. Thanks for joining the program.
It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So tell us what your analysis is of the situation that's actually on the ground in Ferguson as we speak.
You know, in many ways, it remains as tense as it was in August. So in August, remember that we couldn't stand still. We ran from the police. The police were really aggressive in terms of how they arrested people and how they interact with protesters, and it remains still tense. What's different now, the protests have shifted from just being in Ferguson, which is in the county of St. Louis, to also being in Shaw, which is in the city of St. Louis, and the way we protest has just changed so dramatically. And, you know, in August, we didn't know each other, but we came together because we knew what was happening was wrong, whereas now we know each other. We're a community. There's like love in this space and joy in this space, though there's a lot of pain and grief as well.
And where do you think that this movement is going, both in Ferguson, but also extrapolate from there nationally?
You know, I think the power of Ferguson, right? Ferguson didn't teach us that there was injustice. We knew that there was injustice. What Ferguson taught us was the power of our voice coming together and protest, right? We never thought that 150 cities across the world would protest. And that has been a powerful thing to see other communities like own the struggle in their own space. I think that will continue. I think that the way that we protest and push systems and structures to respond to Black bodies will also continue. I'm hopeful in Ferguson that'll lead to systemic change because of the police remain really aggressive with the way they police Blackness.
You know, in 2011, we had the Madison Uprising in Wisconsin, and then we had the Occupy movement. And in the case of the Occupy movement, there were many people that expected that that was going to continue on for a while. And at a certain point, it seemed to fizzle out. It was a movement that did not have very clear demands. How would you compare the movement that's emerged out of Ferguson with the Occupy movement?
You know, I think that there are two different spaces. I think that like our clear demand is don't kill us, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think is as clear as it can be. Like, let us breathe, let us stand, let us sit, let us eat, let us walk to grandma's house, let us like walk down the stairs. Is don't kill us. And I think that that is like as fundamental as a demand can be. I think that like, again, there are many demands that talk about the conditions that allow these murders to happen that are also really important. But at the end of the day, the demand is simple. I think that, you know, the best way that I think about comparing Occupy and what we're doing here is that there is no way we ever would be able to put tents in near any building, definitely not in St. Louis. So we've had to change the way that we like interact in the space of disruption, in the space of protest. That's been really powerful. And we also, I think, we are growing in this decentralized leadership space, and it's been really empowering to see so many organizers like rise up both across the country and in Ferguson to be able to fuel the movement. I'm hopeful that it'll continue. Again, we didn't think we'd still be here 119 days later, but we're proud that we are. And we're proud that the world has joined us in this moment, in this movement.
Now, a lot of the events on Black Friday, there were a variety of different things. There were the strikes at Walmart and protests there. And then there were simultaneously actions in response to Ferguson and other acts of police brutality. And it's been reported that in some places the sales significantly dropped. What was your take on those events?
Yeah, I mean, we shut down the mall, right? So like what happened? We shut down the Galleria in St. Louis around like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So like we had completely like shut down the mall, jammed up traffic around it. So, I think that we made an impact, and we shut down probably 3 malls that day, a couple Walmarts. So we believe that there was like impact there. We also believe that people like in their own form of protest just chose not to spend money. So we believe that there's a direct correlation between the protest actions and the decline in sales that we saw both on that day and on Cyber Monday.
When you look at New York and the Eric Garner case, how would you judge that in terms of similarities, differences in terms of response, the response? Do you draw any conclusions about the issue of the police, grand juries, and particularly this issue of cameras that has been gaining a lot of attention, including through President Obama?
Yeah, well, we've always said the cameras wouldn't save us. And Eric Garner was like a great example. In St. Louis, they have body cameras now. And like we filmed a ton of things, and it hasn't made the police any less aggressive. So we felt really confident that like body cameras weren't going to be the solution. I think what Garner showed us, right, is that you are not safe even on film. So people, the body camera proponents were like, as long as they have cameras, people will be safe. And what you saw was that like his whole entire murder was filmed, and it still didn't save him. And what Mike showed us was that like going to grandma's house isn't safe. And Von Derek showed us that like buying a sandwich isn't safe. So if anything, Garner just like helps highlight the pattern of abuse that Blackness like experiences in America, even when filmed, like even in places that are supposed to be safe, or in spaces that like have all these tools that are supposed to save you, just like Tamir was filmed as well, and that didn't save him.
So let's go full circle then. Then what is the demand? I mean, you said earlier in response to the question about Occupy that it's stop killing us, and I got that. But at the level of structural proposals, what do you see, and what do you think, but also what do you see as emerging as any set of concrete structural proposals to address these lynchings?
Yeah, so there are a lot of proposals out there. I think that some of the ones that resonate with me a lot are around special prosecutors for all officer-involved deadly shootings, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think there's a strong argument that like the district prosecutor, the local prosecutor should not be in a position to lead the prosecution of police. So I think that like any way that we can get to the structure of how prosecutions against the police happens, I think that's really strong. I think that there's some other interesting things, especially in St. Louis, around fines and fees. Like, what does it mean to criminalize Blackness? That leads to, like, it leads to police sort of criminalizing Black people in a set of spaces. So what does it mean when you can get like a ticket for cutting your grass that can lead to a warrant for your arrest that like necessarily creates this tension between you and police as a criminal? Like, I think we can do things in those structures. I'm not wholly against body cameras. I just think that like if we're going to have body cameras, they should come as like, one piece of a much larger plan. I don't think alone they're going to be enough, but I do think the evidence is important there. And I think that like training around communities of color, or sensitivity training, or de-escalation, like that sort of training, or even how to work with your partners of police to de-escalate could be powerful things.
Let me ask you one final question. In getting accurate information, and specifically in the case of Ferguson, what do you recommend? What would you say to our viewers if they want to get more information, accurate, timely information about what's going on the ground, what should they read? What should they look at?
Yeah, I think that what we found in Ferguson is that Twitter has been the single biggest source of truth for us in any capacity. And there are some of us who have carried the message wide and far. So Antonio French, Tef Poe, me, Netta, probably the four people who move the message a lot in terms of just like coordinating it. And then we do put out a daily newsletter. So it's at thisisthemovement.org, where we track the news every day to just make sure people like know what to read and know where to follow.
Let me ask you one further question. It was, what is it, last Sunday, Sunday before last, the St. Louis Rams gained a lot of attention when several players expressed solidarity with the people of Ferguson and in response to the grand jury verdict. What was your take? What was the response at the base about the expression of solidarity by those players, but also the response by the police?
You know, we were all really proud of the Rams. We remain really proud of the Rams. We were surprised by it because when we did the banner drop in the Rams Stadium, ESPN will not show, like they refused to air the banner drop. So we were shocked that there was actually any airtime around the Rams putting their hands up, because there's also like in the St. Louis space, there has not historically been a lot of media presence around us protesting around the Rams game. So that was just that was really different. We remain proud. We remained disgusted and disappointed in the police association that came out in opposition, and in that press release that referred to Black people as thugs. We are insulted and offended by that. And even the thought that the Rams like called Rorta and apologized in any capacity is insulting to the protest community. But to the Rams players themselves, we remain proud and humble that they chose to use their platform, which is a big platform, in solidarity with the movement and in solidarity with Black life.
DeRay McKesson, thank you very much for joining us and bringing your energy to our program and to this discussion. Much appreciated.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll be back in a moment. This is The Global African. I'm your host, Bill Fletcher. Stay with us. Joining us for our discussion is Alexis Templeton and State Representative Courtney Curtis. Alexis Templeton is a 20-year-old Ferguson resident and co-founder of Millennial Activists United. And Representative Courtney Curtis is the representative in the Missouri House of Representatives of the 73rd District, which covers most of Ferguson. Thank you for joining us for the program.
Thank you for having me.
Representative Curtis, as someone who has chosen to work within the system, how do you see your role in the context of these current protests around Ferguson?
It's a complicated one because on one side, I see the injustices, as an African-American man. And on the other side, I see myself as somebody that's supposed to help make the changes, but I'm not necessarily in a true position of power to do it. So I often go back and forth between being out there and then trying to push things behind the scenes, but I'm not seeing things move fast enough. So I go back to, see what else we can do.
What's the mood in the State House?
Yeah, I can't really say right now. A lot of people are sympathetic to what we're going through. A lot of people want to know when it's going to be over. They want to know what needs to change. We've had conversations about what we can do to improve the situation. And as of right now, everything is focusing on the court system and the multiple fees and things that you get from the speed traps and over-aggressive enforcement of the laws. And that's not really the basis of the problems that exist.
Now, my understanding is that you either filed or were preparing to file some legislation on the police using body cameras. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm still getting things together. I didn't want to jump out there and just make it look like I was doing it to gather attention. We're trying to make sure that it's thoughtful. But I think that is one step, but there's a whole bunch of things that come with that. Just having the police cameras, if the police ultimately control the video footage, then that doesn't give you any more trust in the system. So we're actually in talks with people trying to provide a third-party provider system to where the video footage can go and it can be unedited and we can make sure that the integrity of the footage would be kept intact. That's one thing. And then we're also trying to make sure that the citizens have something themselves to record the incidents as well.
So Representative Curtis, in light of the Staten Island grand jury choosing not to indict the police in the murder of Eric Garner, that was all caught on camera. So in light of that, has that led you to reflect on what your legislation might look like?
On one side, it would provide additional context, definitely in the Mike Brown situation. In the Eric Garner situation, you did have nearly a full accounting of the situation and the grand jury. So it just shows that there's multiple problems that we have to address, and starting with having additional context or audio or video footage would give us more information to make better decisions. The grand jury is something completely different. The makeup of that and how they come to that, there may be some systematic changes that need to be made. But it's only a start. It's not meant to be the one-size-fits-all solution to solving the problems in Black America.
Let me just ask one other question. Has any thought been given to removing police cases from the jurisdiction of the county prosecutors so that there's not a conflict of interest? Since these prosecutors need to work with the police, it seems it automatically biases them when it comes to a police brutality case.
There has been a lot of thought given to that. I think some people, one of my senators filed a bill related to that. Have some legislation that will be coming that will do some things as well. If we remove the prosecutor, then who do we get? In St. Louis County, it would either go to the city, which would be likely the same result, or it would go to Kansas City or a rural area. Missouri is largely comprised of rural areas, so we'd probably get a quicker non-indictment in the rural areas than we would in the urban area. So the only true urban area that we could go to would be Kansas City.
Alexis, tell us about your shirt.
My hoodie says "Not Your Respectable Negro," and it's in light of people like individuals like Don Lemon, who say things like, well, maybe if Black people put on a suit, then these things wouldn't happen, or maybe if we did this to make ourselves more uncomfortable, to make other people more comfortable, then things like this, then things like police brutality and racial profiling wouldn't happen.
So where does the movement go?
It goes forward, and it goes towards preserving Black lives and reiterating constantly the humanity in Black life. Sad that we have to reiterate that, but.
And for activists such as yourselves on the ground, has there been discussions of any kind regarding building partnerships with legislators like Representative Curtis, to develop some sort of programmatic direction?
People have, obviously people there were a group of activists who went to the White House, and they kind of took a step over. They kind of went above and beyond, which was amazing to go sit down with President Obama to get some form of to first hold the conversation and then try to get some form of legislation started.
So do you think that the principal strategic focus right now is on some legislation?
I wouldn't say that. No, sir. I think that the principal strategic focus right now is uniting the people, and making sure that they're heading, out into these streets to let people around the nation know that this isn't just a Ferguson issue. This isn't just a New York issue, and it's not just a California issue. It's a nationwide thing. And I think that's what a lot of people are focused on. And eventually, I do think it will lead to legislation. But right now, people are fired up, and they want other people to know who may be ignoring these decisions about non-indictments when Black lives are lost.
Well, let me ask this final question to both of you.
Okay.
Traditionally, certainly in my lifetime, in the aftermath of police killings or other lynchings, there are frequently movements, and then they tend to die away, slowly in some cases, quickly in others. When you're thinking about sustaining this kind of movement, what would you say are a couple of the key elements to sustain it? Representative Curtis.
That's a good question. Part of it is the police keep messing up. So that makes it easy to sustain the movement. The energy that the people exhibit is only directly a result of, the injustices that they've seen. And just this week, we had another incident. I don't know when it's going to stop. So I don't know that the movement will stop. People thought that Ferguson would have ended well before it got into its second month, and that didn't happen. It almost seems like that the movement in Ferguson gave New York the ability to do what it's doing now. So I don't see it stopping. I think that it will be sustained, and the passion and energy of the young people is what's driving it. And I'm proud of everything that they're doing. And I think that, they'll do everything they have to keep it going.
Alexis?
I agree with everything he just said. I definitely don't think that it's going to stop, because it won't stop until, like we've told the police numerous times, we aren't going anywhere until you stop killing us. Ferguson lit the fire in many cities across this nation. And with the passion and the energy that not only people in Ferguson have, but people in New York have, people in Ohio have, people in California have, and in Phoenix now, it's just different. I don't think it's going anywhere.
And how do you sum up the Black Friday protests?
They were amazing. We put a dent in 7% sales on Black Friday, and when you hit people's pockets, that makes them extremely uncomfortable. And I think they were extremely successful, and I think that was a really important part of this movement.
Just one final question. I know I said before that was a final question, but Alexis, you mentioned the meeting with President Obama. When you look at that overall, how do you sum up that meeting?
I wasn't there.
No, I know.
Okay.
From everything that you've heard about the meeting, the results of the meeting.
I know that the young people, that the young activists that were asked to go represented us, and they represented us well, and they went up there with their demands, and they held their ground even to the president. They didn't get starstruck that they were meeting the president. They held their ground, and I think, and they're holding him accountable, and we plan to hold him accountable based upon the conversations that was had. So to sum it up, I think it was important that those young activists were up there, because it lets us know that Obama's paying a little bit of attention.
Well, I want to thank you both very, very much. And I'm sure we're going to be having you back, because as you both pointed out, this struggle certainly seems to be continuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of The Global African. I'm your host, Bill Fletcher, and we'll see you next time.